The morning sun cast a golden glow over London as thousands of people lined the streets leading to Westminster Abbey. Camera crews from around the world had set up their equipment hours before dawn, knowing that today would be special. The air buzzed with excitement and anticipation as crowds gathered, many carrying small Union Jack flags and homemade signs expressing their love for the royal family. Prince William stood in front of the mirror in Kensington Palace, adjusting his formal attire one final time. His hands moved with practiced precision, but those who knew him well could see the slight tension in his shoulders. Today wasn't just another royal engagement or ceremonial duty. Today carried the weight of tradition, the hopes of millions, and the responsibility of representing everything the British monarchy stood for in the modern world. Princess Kate entered the room, her presence immediately bringing a sense of calm to the atmosphere. She wore an elegant coat dress in a deep navy blue, chosen specifically to honor the solemnity of the occasion, while still reflecting her personal style that had won hearts across the globe. Her hair was styled in a sophisticated updo, and she wore the pearl earrings that had once belonged to Princess Diana, a touching tribute that connected past and present. The children were in the adjoining room with their nanny, and the sounds of their laughter could be heard through the walls. Prince George, now growing into his role as future heir, was practicing his formal walk, taking measured steps across the carpet. His younger sister, Princess Charlotte, was spinning in her carefully chosen dress, delighting in how the fabric moved around her. Little Prince Louis, still bubbling with the energy of childhood, was asking endless questions about where they were going and why everyone seemed so serious. William and Kate exchanged a look that spoke volumes about their shared understanding of what lay ahead. They had discussed this moment many times in private, knowing that their entrance to Westminster Abbey would be watched by millions around the world. Every gesture, every expression, every step would be analyzed and remembered. But beyond the public scrutiny, they both understood the deeper meaning of what they were about to do. The history of Westminster Abbey stretched back over 1,000 years, and its walls had witnessed the coronations of kings and queens, royal weddings and state funerals that had shaped the course of British history. For William, the Abbey held particularly personal significance. It was here that he had married Kate in a ceremony watched by billions, and it was here that his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, had been crowned decades before his birth. Kate took a final look at her reflection, not out of vanity, but from the practical understanding that millions of photographs would be taken today. She thought about the letters she had received from children around the world, expressing their excitement about seeing the royal family. She remembered the elderly woman who had waited for hours in the rain just to catch a glimpse of them during their last public appearance, and how that woman's face had lit up with pure joy when Kate had waved directly at her. The security team had been preparing for weeks, coordinating with local police and international agencies to ensure that every aspect of the day would go smoothly. The route to Westminster Abbey had been carefully planned, with multiple contingency options should anything unexpected occur. But beyond the logistics and security measures, there was an understanding among everyone involved that they were facilitating something much larger than a simple public appearance. William's private secretary knocked gently on the door, indicating that it was time to collect the children and begin their journey. The prince took a deep breath, feeling the weight of generations of royal tradition settling on his shoulders, but also feeling the strength that came from knowing he was not carrying this burden alone. Kate's steady presence beside him, and the knowledge that his children would grow up understanding both the privileges and responsibilities of their position, gave him the confidence to face whatever lay ahead. The children were brought in, each dressed appropriately for the occasion, but still maintaining their individual personalities in small ways. George's hair was neatly combed, but there was still a hint of the mischievous sparkle in his eyes that reminded everyone who saw him that he was, first and foremost, a young boy. Charlotte's dress was pristine, but she had insisted on wearing her favorite small bracelet, a tiny act of personal expression that Kate had allowed after some consideration. As they prepared to leave Kensington Palace, William took a moment to look out the window at the crowds that were already gathering along their route. He could see people of all ages, from elderly couples who remembered his grandmother's coronation to young families with small children perched on their shoulders for a better view. The diversity of the crowd reminded him that the monarchy's role was not just ceremonial, but deeply connected to the lives and hopes of ordinary people. Kate gathered her small clutch bag, checking once more that she had everything she might need for the day ahead. She thought about the speech she might need to give, the hands she would shake, and the faces she would see. But mostly, she thought about the message their family's presence would send to the world about unity, continuity, and hope for the future. The children were briefed one final time about what to expect, how to behave, and what would be expected of them. But William and Kate were careful to frame these instructions in terms of the privilege they had to represent their country, rather than as burdens or restrictions. They wanted their children to understand that their position came with responsibilities, but also with the opportunity to make a positive difference in people's lives. As they prepared to step outside and begin their journey to Westminster Abbey, each member of the family carried with them their own understanding of what this day meant. For William, it was another step in his lifelong preparation to eventually become king. For Kate, it was a chance to demonstrate the grace and dignity that had made her beloved around the world. For the children, it was an adventure that would become part of their earliest memories of public service. The door to their residence opened, and the first glimpse of the waiting world came into view, setting the stage for a day that would indeed touch the hearts of millions and be remembered for years to come. The royal car moved smoothly through the streets of London, its windows offering glimpses of the family inside to the thousands of people who had lined the route. Prince William sat beside Kate, occasionally pointing out landmarks to the children or waving to particularly enthusiastic groups in the crowd. The children pressed their faces to the windows, marveling at the sea of people who had come out to see them. Prince George observed everything with the serious attention that had become characteristic of him as he grew older. He asked his father quiet questions about the buildings they passed and the people they saw. William answered each question thoughtfully, understanding that these moments were part of his son's education in what it meant to be royal. The weight of future responsibility was never far from William's mind when it came to George, but he was determined that his eldest child would grow up with as normal a childhood as possible under the circumstances. Princess Charlotte waved enthusiastically at the crowds, her natural warmth and energy evident even from inside the vehicle. She had inherited her mother's instinctive understanding of how to connect with people, and even at her young age, she seemed to grasp that the people outside were there because they cared about her family. Kate watched her daughter with a mixture of pride and protective concern, knowing that Charlotte's natural charisma would be both a gift and a responsibility as she grew older. Prince Louis, still young enough to see the whole experience as an exciting adventure, bounced in his seat and pointed at the horses of the mounted police escorts. His innocent joy brought smiles to the faces of his parents and siblings, reminding everyone in the car that despite the formal nature of their mission, they were still a family sharing a unique experience together. As they approached Westminster Abbey, the crowds grew thicker and the energy in the air became almost electric. Street barriers held back thousands of people, many of whom had been waiting for hours just to catch a glimpse of the royal family. Union Jack flags fluttered in the breeze alongside handmade signs expressing support and affection for William, Kate, and their children. The diversity of the crowd was striking, representing not just different ages and backgrounds, but people who had traveled from across the United Kingdom and around the world for this moment. Television cameras mounted on buildings and vehicles captured every angle of the royal car's approach. News anchors positioned throughout the area provided commentary to viewers around the globe, explaining the significance of the occasion and describing the scenes unfolding before them. Social media was already buzzing with photographs and videos taken by members of the public, spreading images of the royal family's journey in real time to millions of people who couldn't be there in person. Inside the car, Kate reviewed the schedule of events one final time, though she had memorized every detail weeks ago. Her experience in public life had taught her the importance of preparation, but she also knew that the most meaningful moments often came from the unexpected interactions and spontaneous connections with the people they met. She had learned to balance careful planning with genuine openness to whatever the day might bring. William's thoughts turned to his late mother, Princess Diana, and how she would have felt about this moment. Diana had always emphasized the importance of connecting with ordinary people and using royal privilege to make a positive difference in the world. He knew that she would have been proud to see her grandchildren taking their first major steps into public life. and he carried her memory with him as a source of both inspiration and responsibility. The security presence around Westminster Abbey was visible but unobtrusive, designed to ensure safety without creating a barrier between the royal family and the public. Police officers on foot patrol smiled and waved at children in the crowd, understanding that they were part of creating the positive atmosphere that would make this day memorable for everyone involved. The coordination between different security agencies was seamless, the result of months of careful planning and preparation. Local shop owners along the route had decorated their windows with royal memorabilia and British flags. Many had opened early to accommodate the crowds, and the festive atmosphere had turned what could have been a purely formal occasion into something more like a community celebration. Street vendors sold small flags, buttons, and commemorative items, while coffee shops and pubs welcomed visitors who had traveled from far away to witness the day's events. As the royal car finally reached the immediate vicinity of Westminster Abbey, the ancient spires of the church came into full view. The building had stood as a symbol of British history and tradition for nearly 1,000 years, and its stones had witnessed some of the most significant moments in the nation's past. For the children, seeing the Abbey up close for the first time was awe-inspiring, and their parents could see the wonder in their eyes as they took in the magnificent architecture. The car slowed as it approached the designated stopping point, and William felt his pulse quicken slightly. He had participated in countless public events over the years, but there was something about this particular moment that felt especially significant. Perhaps it was the presence of his children, or the scale of public interest, or simply the weight of history that surrounded Westminster Abbey. Whatever the reason, he knew that the next few minutes would be remembered for years to come. Kate took a final look at her children, adjusting Charlotte's hair slightly and straightening Louis's collar. These small maternal gestures happened instinctively, but they were also captured by the cameras and would later be seen by millions as evidence of her natural warmth and care for her family. She had learned over the years that every public moment was also a private moment, and that the key to authenticity was to simply be herself, regardless of who was watching. The crowd's cheering grew louder as people realized that the moment of arrival was imminent. Cameras flashed from every direction, and news helicopters circled overhead, broadcasting live footage to television networks around the world. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation, but also warm with genuine affection for the royal family. As the car came to a complete stop outside Westminster Abbey, William reached over and squeezed Kate's hand briefly. It was a small gesture of support and connection that spoke volumes about their partnership, both as husband and wife, and as representatives of the crown. The children sensed that something important was about to happen, and they sat up straighter in their seats, instinctively understanding that they were about to step into the public eye in a way that would define how millions of people around the world would remember this day. The car door opened and Prince William stepped out first, immediately greeted by a wave of cheering that seemed to echo off the ancient stones of Westminster Abbey. The sound was overwhelming at first, a wall of voices expressing joy, excitement, and genuine affection. William paused for just a moment, allowing his eyes to adjust to the brightness outside and taking in the incredible scene before him. Thousands of faces looked back at him, many holding up phones and cameras, others simply smiling and waving with unbridled enthusiasm. Kate emerged next, her grace and poise immediately evident as she stepped onto the pavement. The crowd's reaction to her appearance was noticeably warm, with many people calling out her name and expressing their admiration. She had won hearts around the world not just for her style and beauty, but for her genuine warmth and her dedication to her role as a mother and a member of the royal family. As she stood beside William, the couple presented a picture of unity and strength that resonated deeply with the watching public. The moment everyone had been waiting for came as the children began to exit the vehicle. Prince George emerged with the careful dignity that had become his trademark, clearly understanding the significance of the moment, but still maintaining the natural curiosity of a young boy. He looked around at the crowd with wide eyes, taking in the magnitude of the scene before him. The public's reaction to seeing George was particularly emotional, as many people recognized that they were witnessing a future king, taking one of his first major steps into public life. Princess Charlotte stepped out next, and her natural charisma was immediately apparent. She smiled broadly at the crowd, seeming genuinely delighted by all the attention and excitement. Her confident demeanor and obvious comfort in the spotlight reminded many observers of her grandmother, Princess Diana, who had possessed a similar ability to connect with people instinctively. Charlotte's presence brought an extra warmth to the already emotional scene, as her joy seemed infectious to everyone watching. Prince Louis was the last to emerge, and his appearance brought audible sounds of delight from the crowd. At his young age, he was clearly fascinated by everything around him, turning his head to take in the crowds, the cameras, and the imposing architecture of Westminster Abbey. His innocent wonder and natural charm provided a perfect counterpoint to the formal nature of the occasion, reminding everyone that despite their royal status, this was still a family sharing a special moment together. The family gathered together on the pavement, and for a brief moment they simply stood as a unit, taking in the extraordinary scene around them. The crowd continued to cheer and wave, but there was also a respectful quality to their enthusiasm, as if everyone understood that they were witnessing something truly special. The cameras captured every angle, every expression, and every gesture, but somehow the mechanical process of documentation didn't diminish the genuine emotion of the moment. William and Kate exchanged a quick glance, a silent communication that came from years of partnership in navigating public life together. They both understood that the next few minutes would require them to balance their roles as parents with their responsibilities as representatives of the crown. The children needed guidance and support, but they also needed the freedom to experience this moment in their own way. As they began to walk toward the entrance of Westminster Abbey, the crowd's cheering seemed to grow even louder. People pressed against the barriers, reaching out their hands and calling out messages of support and encouragement. The family moved at a measured pace, allowing everyone to see them clearly while also giving the children time to process the overwhelming nature of their surroundings. Prince George walked beside his father, occasionally looking up at William for reassurance or guidance. His posture was remarkably composed for someone so young, but those who knew him could see the slight nervousness in his careful movements. William placed a gentle hand on his son's shoulder at one point, a gesture that was both protective and encouraging, silently communicating that George was doing well and that his father was proud of him. Princess Charlotte seemed to thrive in the atmosphere, waving at the crowd with genuine enthusiasm, and even pausing briefly to look directly at some of the people who were calling her name. Her natural ability to connect with others was remarkable for someone her age, and her obvious enjoyment of the experience brought smiles to faces throughout the crowd. Kate watched her daughter with a mixture of pride and protective awareness, understanding that Charlotte's natural gifts would be both an asset and a responsibility as she grew older. Prince Louis, still young enough to be somewhat overwhelmed by the scale of everything around him, stayed close to his parents but continued to look around with wide-eyed fascination. His innocent reactions to the crowd and the cameras provided some of the most endearing moments of the entire arrival, as his genuine wonder reminded everyone watching that childhood curiosity and joy could exist even in the most formal circumstances. The approach to Westminster Abbey seemed to take both forever and no time at all. Each step carried the family closer to the historic building that had witnessed so many significant moments in British royal history. The ancient stone seemed to watch over the scene with timeless dignity, providing a sense of continuity that connected this moment to centuries of tradition and ceremony. As they neared the entrance to the abbey, the formal aspects of the occasion became more apparent. Church officials and ceremonial guards took their positions, and the atmosphere shifted slightly from the joyful chaos of the crowd to the more structured environment of official protocol. But even as the formal elements came into play, the essential warmth of the moment remained intact. The children seemed to sense the change in atmosphere, and their behavior became more focused and attentive. George straightened his shoulders and walked with even more careful precision, while Charlotte's waves to the crowd became more measured and gracious. Even Louis seemed to understand that something important was happening, and his constant movement and chatter quieted as they approached the threshold of the abbey. William and Kate flanked their children, creating a protective formation that also highlighted the family unity that had touched so many hearts around the world. Their synchronized movements and mutual support demonstrated the strength of their partnership and their shared commitment to their roles as parents and as representatives of the monarchy. The image they presented was one of dignity, warmth, and hope for the future. The massive doors of Westminster Abbey stood open before them, revealing the breathtaking interior that had been witness to nearly 1,000 years of British history. As the family approached the threshold, the contrast between the jubilant energy of the crowd outside and the solemn grandeur within became immediately apparent. The ancient stones seemed to absorb sound, creating a sense of reverence and timelessness that was both humbling and inspiring. Prince William paused at the entrance, allowing his children a moment to take in their first close view of the Abbey's magnificent interior. The soaring Gothic arches stretched high above them, decorated with intricate stone carvings that had been crafted by master artisans centuries before. Sunlight filtered through the stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns on the floor and creating an almost magical atmosphere that seemed to enchant the children immediately. Princess Kate bent down slightly to speak quietly to Prince Louis, explaining in simple terms what they were about to experience. Her maternal instincts were perfectly balanced with her understanding of royal protocol, as she helped her youngest son prepare for the formal environment they were entering, while still allowing him to maintain his natural curiosity and wonder. The tender interaction between mother and child was captured by photographers, but it remained genuine despite the public setting. Prince George stood straighter as he crossed the threshold, clearly understanding that he was entering a place of great significance. His eyes moved upward to take in the vaulted ceiling, and the expression on his face showed a mixture of awe and respect that was remarkable for someone his age. William watched his eldest son carefully, proud of the composure George was showing while also remaining ready to offer guidance if needed. Princess Charlotte's reaction to the Abbey's interior was one of pure wonder. She gazed around at the elaborate decorations, the rows of wooden pews, and the altar that had been the site of so many important ceremonies. Her natural enthusiasm was somewhat subdued by the sacred atmosphere, but her eyes sparkled with fascination as she tried to take in every detail of her surroundings. As they moved deeper into the Abbey, the family was greeted by church officials and dignitaries who had been waiting to welcome them. These formal introductions were handled with the practiced ease that came from years of royal engagements, but there was also a genuine warmth in the exchanges that reflected the special nature of this particular occasion. The children were introduced with special care, as many of the officials were meeting them for the first time in such a formal setting. The acoustics within Westminster Abbey created a unique atmosphere where every whisper seemed amplified, yet the overall effect was one of peaceful contemplation rather than chaos. The children instinctively lowered their voices, understanding without being told that they were in a place that demanded reverence and respect. This natural adaptation to their surroundings demonstrated the quality of their upbringing and their intuitive understanding of appropriate behavior in different settings. William's thoughts turned to the many generations of his family who had walked these same stones. His grandparents, his father, and countless ancestors had stood in this very place for ceremonies that had shaped the course of British history. The weight of that tradition was both inspiring and sobering, as he considered the role his own children would play in continuing that legacy for future generations. Kate's experience of the Abbey was deeply personal, as this was the place where she had been married to William in a ceremony watched by billions around the world. The memories of that joyful day came flooding back as she walked through the familiar spaces, but now she was experiencing them as a mother, watching her children discover the same sense of awe and reverence that she had felt as a bride. The formal ceremony that followed was conducted with all the dignity and tradition that Westminster Abbey was known for. Church officials spoke about the historical significance of the building and its role in British royal history, while the family listened with appropriate attention and respect. The children remained remarkably well behaved throughout the proceedings, clearly understanding the importance of the occasion. During quieter moments in the ceremony, the family members exchanged glances and small gestures of support and encouragement. These subtle communications demonstrated the strong bonds between them and their ability to function as a unit even in the most formal circumstances. The love and mutual respect they shared was evident to everyone present, and it added a deeply human dimension to the grand historical setting. Prince George asked several thoughtful questions during appropriate moments, showing his developing understanding of royal history and tradition. His inquiries were answered with patience and thoroughness by both his parents and the church officials, who clearly appreciated his genuine interest and engagement with the subject matter. These educational moments were seamlessly woven into the formal proceedings, creating opportunities for learning within the ceremonial framework. Princess Charlotte's natural grace and poise continued to impress everyone present. She seemed to understand instinctively when to be still and attentive, and when it was appropriate to show her personality and charm. Her ability to read social situations and respond appropriately was remarkable for someone her age, and it suggested that she would grow up to be very effective in her royal role. Prince Louis, while still young enough to require occasional guidance from his parents, showed remarkable patience and good behavior throughout the lengthy ceremony. His innocent reactions to various elements of the proceedings provided moments of gentle humor that lightened the formal atmosphere without diminishing the dignity of the occasion. As the ceremony progressed, it became clear that this was more than just a formal royal engagement. The presence of the children added a dimension of hope and continuity that resonated deeply with everyone present. They represented the future of the monarchy and the ongoing connection between the royal family and the British people. The interaction between the family and the various officials and dignitaries present was marked by warmth and genuine mutual respect. Conversations flowed naturally between formal protocol and personal connection, creating an atmosphere that was both appropriately ceremonial and genuinely human. The children were included in these interactions in age-appropriate ways, allowing them to begin learning the art of royal diplomacy and public engagement. Throughout the entire experience, the ancient walls of Westminster Abbey seemed to embrace this modern royal family, creating a bridge between past and future that was both moving and inspiring. The combination of historical tradition and contemporary family dynamics created something unique and special that would be remembered by everyone present for years to come. As the formal ceremony within Westminster Abbey drew to a close, the atmosphere began to shift from solemn reverence to anticipatory excitement. The family had completed the official portions of their visit with dignity and grace, and now came the moment that many in the waiting crowd outside had been hoping for, the opportunity to see the royal family emerge from the historic building and interact more directly with the public. Prince William could sense the energy building outside through the ancient stone walls of the abbey. The murmur of thousands of voices created a constant background hum that seemed to grow stronger as the moment of their departure approached. He looked at his children, noting how each of them had grown more confident and comfortable throughout their time inside the abbey, and felt a surge of pride at how well they had handled their first major public ceremonial appearance. Princess Kate gathered the children around her for a brief moment, using the transition time to check that everyone was ready for what would likely be an even more intense experience outside. She smoothed Charlotte's hair and adjusted Louis's collar, while also taking a moment to share an encouraging smile with George. These small maternal gestures had become second nature to her, but they took on added significance. In the formal setting where every action was observed and recorded, the church officials who had guided them through the ceremony expressed their gratitude for the family's presence and their obvious respect for the traditions and significance of Westminster Abbey. These farewell exchanges were warm and genuine, creating personal connections that went beyond the formal requirements of the occasion. The children were particularly thanked for their excellent behavior and their engagement with the historical and religious aspects of their visit. As they prepared to leave the abbey, Prince George asked his father about what would happen next. William explained that they would spend some time meeting people who had been waiting outside, and that this was one of the most important aspects of royal duties, connecting directly with the public and showing appreciation for their support and interest. George nodded seriously, clearly understanding that this next phase would require a different kind of behavior and attention. Princess Charlotte seemed excited about the prospect of meeting more people, her natural sociability making her particularly well suited for public interactions. She asked her mother if she would be able to talk to some of the children she had seen in the crowd, and Kate explained that while they would need to keep moving, there would indeed be opportunities for brief conversations and connections with members of the public. Prince Louis, energized by the change of pace and the prospect of returning to the lively atmosphere outside, bounced slightly on his toes with anticipation. His parents exchanged amused glances, recognizing that their youngest would need gentle guidance to channel his enthusiasm appropriately during the public interactions that lay ahead. The doors of Westminster Abbey were opened once again, and immediately the sounds of the waiting crowd filled the ancient space. The cheering and applause that greeted their appearance was overwhelming in its enthusiasm and warmth. Cameras flashed constantly, creating an almost strobe-like effect, while news crews positioned themselves to capture every moment of the family's emergence from the building. The contrast between the quiet dignity of the Abbey's interior and the jubilant energy of the crowd outside was striking, but the family navigated the transition smoothly. William and Kate had experienced such dramatic shifts in atmosphere many times before, and they helped guide their children through the adjustment with practiced ease. As they stepped outside, the full magnitude of the crowd's size became apparent. Thousands of people stretched as far as the eye could see, held back by barriers but pressing forward in their eagerness to catch a glimpse of the royal family. The diversity of the crowd was remarkable, representing different ages, backgrounds, and nationalities, all united in their shared interest in witnessing this historic moment. The family began to move along the barriers, following a predetermined route that would allow them to greet as many members of the public as possible, while maintaining appropriate security and timing. This type of walkabout was a classic element of royal engagements, but it took on special meaning with the children present, as many people in the crowd had come specifically hoping to see the young royals. Prince William took the lead in the public interactions, his years of experience evident in his ability to move efficiently while still making meaningful connections with individuals in the crowd. He shook hands, accepted flowers and small gifts, and engaged in brief conversations that left lasting impressions on the people he met. His natural warmth and genuine interest in others had always been one of his greatest strengths in public life. Kate followed closely behind, and her interactions with the crowd were marked by the same grace and warmth that had made her beloved around the world. She had a particular gift for making each person she spoke with feel seen and valued, even in the brief moments available during such events. Her smile was genuine, and her questions about people's lives and experiences showed her sincere interest in connecting with others. The children's participation in the walkabout created some of the most memorable moments of the entire day. Prince George, while still somewhat reserved, showed growing confidence as he was introduced to various members of the public. His polite responses to questions and his obvious intelligence impressed everyone he met, and many people commented afterward about his maturity and composure. Princess Charlotte's natural charisma truly shone during the public interactions. She seemed to have an instinctive understanding of how to connect with people, offering bright smiles and showing genuine interest when adults and children alike spoke to her. Her warmth and enthusiasm were infectious, and she left a trail of delighted faces wherever she went along the barrier. Prince Louis, while requiring more guidance from his parents, provided moments of pure joy and spontaneity that endeared him to everyone present. His innocent comments and reactions to the crowd's attention brought laughter and smiles, reminding everyone that despite the formal nature of the occasion, this was still a family sharing a special experience together. Throughout the walkabout, the professional photographers and news crews captured thousands of images and hours of video footage that would be shared around the world within minutes. But beyond the media coverage, the real impact of the day was being felt in the personal connections being made between the royal family and the individual members of the public who had taken the time to come out and show their support. As the walkabout continued, individual stories began to emerge from the crowd that would later become part of the lasting memory of this extraordinary day. An elderly woman who had waited since dawn to see the family was brought to tears when Princess Kate stopped to speak with her personally, asking about her journey to Westminster and thanking her for her dedication. The woman later told reporters that the princess had made her feel like the most important person in the world during their brief conversation. A young girl, no older than Princess Charlotte, had dressed in her finest clothes and brought a handmade drawing of the royal family to present as a gift. When Charlotte was shown the artwork, her face lit up with genuine delight, and she spent several moments examining the details and asking questions about how it was made. The interaction between the two children was captured by dozens of cameras, but more importantly, it created a memory that the young artist would treasure for the rest of her life. Prince George encountered a group of school children who had been given permission to leave their classes for this special occasion. Their teacher had prepared them with questions about royal history and traditions, and George surprised everyone by engaging in a brief educational discussion about Westminster Abbey and its significance. His knowledge and articulate responses impressed the adults present and showed his developing understanding of his future role. Prince Louis discovered the joy of crowd interaction when he noticed a baby being held up by parents desperate for their child to be seen by the royal family. Louis pointed at the baby with delight, causing both children to laugh, which in turn brought smiles to everyone nearby. The spontaneous moment of connection between the two youngest members of their respective families became one of the most shared images of the day on social media. William found himself in conversation with a veteran who had served in the military for decades and wanted to express his respect for the royal family's ongoing support of service members. The prince's genuine interest in the man's experiences and his thoughtful questions about military service demonstrated the depth of his commitment to understanding the lives of those who serve their country. The veteran later described feeling honored not just to meet the future king, but to be heard and understood by him. Kate encountered a mother who had brought her special needs child to the event, hoping that the excitement of seeing the royal family might provide a breakthrough moment for her daughter, who had been struggling with communication challenges. When Kate knelt down to speak with the child at her level, using gentle gestures and patient encouragement, the little girl surprised everyone by speaking clearly for the first time in months. The mother's tears of joy and Kate's obvious emotion at witnessing this moment created one of the most touching scenes of the entire day. As the walkabout progressed, it became clear that the impact of the day extended far beyond the immediate participants. News coverage was reaching audiences around the globe, and social media platforms were filled with images and videos that captured not just the formal aspects of the royal visit, but the genuine human connections that were being made. Comments poured in from people around the world expressing their admiration for the family's warmth and accessibility. The professional photographers present were capturing history in real time, but they were also documenting something more elusive: the intangible quality that made this particular royal family so beloved by people of all backgrounds. The images showed not just the formal poses and ceremonial moments, but the genuine smiles, the spontaneous interactions, and the obvious love and support the family members showed for each other. Local news crews interviewed members of the crowd throughout the day, collecting stories that painted a picture of the event's impact on individuals and families. Many people spoke about feeling connected to something larger than themselves, about the sense of continuity and tradition that the royal family represented, and about the hope for the future that the children embodied. International media coverage emphasized the global significance of the day, noting how the images of the royal family at Westminster Abbey had resonated with audiences far beyond Britain's borders. News anchors from around the world commented on the family's ability to represent both tradition and modernity, combining centuries-old ceremonial roles with contemporary approaches to parenting and public service. As the formal walkabout began to wind down, the family took a final moment to acknowledge the entire crowd, standing together outside Westminster Abbey, with the ancient spires rising behind them. They waved to the thousands of people who had waited patiently throughout the day. The image of the 5 family members united in gratitude and service would become one of the defining photographs of their public life together. The children had grown noticeably more confident throughout the day, and their final waves to the crowd showed a newfound understanding of their role in bringing joy to others. Prince George's wave had evolved from tentative politeness to genuine warmth, while Princess Charlotte's natural enthusiasm had been refined into gracious acknowledgement of the crowd's affection. Even Prince Louis seemed to understand that his smiles and waves brought happiness to the people watching. The return journey to their vehicle was managed with the same careful attention to public engagement that had marked their arrival. Each step back toward the car provided additional opportunities for final interactions with the crowd, and the family used these moments wisely, ensuring that as many people as possible felt acknowledged and appreciated for their presence. As they reached their car, William paused to speak with some of the security personnel and local officials who had helped make the day possible. His recognition of the team effort required for such events demonstrated the leadership qualities that would serve him well as future king, while also showing his children the importance of acknowledging everyone who contributes to public service. Kate used the final moments outside the car to accept a few last bouquets from children in the crowd, making sure to engage personally with each young person who had made the effort to prepare a gift. Her maternal instincts and her understanding of childhood made these interactions particularly meaningful, as she treated each child with the same attention she would give to her own. The car doors closed, and the family settled in for their journey home. But the impact of their Westminster Abbey appearance would continue to ripple outward for days, weeks, and years to come. The children chatted excitedly about the people they had met and the experiences they had shared, while William and Kate exchanged satisfied glances, knowing they had successfully introduced their children to one of the most important aspects of royal life. As their car pulled away from Westminster Abbey, the crowd began to disperse, but many people lingered, reluctant to end an experience that had brought them such joy and connection. Conversations continued among strangers who had shared the day together, and new friendships were formed based on their mutual appreciation for what they had witnessed. The day's events would be analyzed and discussed in newspapers, magazines, and television programs for weeks to come, but the true measure of success was visible in the faces of the people who had been there in person. The royal family had accomplished something remarkable. They had made thousands of individuals feel seen, valued, and connected to something greater than themselves. Years later, the children who met the royal family that day would tell their own children about the experience, passing down not just the memory of meeting princes and princesses, but the lesson that kindness, dignity, and genuine care for others could create moments of magic that transcended social barriers and touched hearts across the world. The Westminster Abbey entrance had indeed touched millions, creating ripple effects of goodwill and connection that would continue to inspire and unite people long after the cameras stopped rolling and the crowds went home. It was a perfect example of how the royal family's most important role was not ceremonial or political, but simply human, bringing people together in shared experiences of joy, hope, and community.